Welcome everyone to the Yiboneh Beit Midrash in Baka, in Jerusalem, home to Torah. We want to welcome everyone home to Torah. The first thing happens to be that tonight is how should I say it? A non-Jewish holiday in America called Thanksgiving. One of the 613 commandments is that we're not supposed to follow the chukim of the goyim. We're not supposed to follow the ways of the Gentiles. So how is it that here we just had turkey, we had cranberry sauce, we had pumpkin pie? I'll tell you the truth. I have pumpkin pie every Shabbos, almost every Shabbos, and I have turkey legs almost every Thursday night. So let me explain how this goes down. First of all, also, since we know that a lot of righteous Gentiles watch this, according to the Rambam, and it's not so far off, we're all in agreement with this. All man religions are forbidden. You're not allowed to make a religion. Okay, so people keep the 7 Noachai laws. Not only do they not make holidays, right, but it's forbidden to practice these holidays if they're based in idol worship, if it's a religious holiday, right? Is Black Friday a religious holiday? Perhaps not. I don't know. It's somehow connected to Thanksgiving? I don't know. But anyway, so how is it that we're celebrating? So I want to go and try to explain what exactly is going on here and why I think every single day is a Jewish holiday, is a day of Thanksgiving. Every single day is a day of Thanksgiving. What are we called? What are we called? Yes, we're Israelites, I know, but we're Yehudim. Yes, we're Yehudim, which means Jews, right? So many people would say, oh, you're Yehudim because of the tribe of Yehuda. That's true. That's only half the truth. When they say that, sometimes what they mean is, well, you're not really all of Israel. There's somewhere, the church is the rest of Israel, or there's people that somehow grafted in, or the lost 10 tribes. So the truth is, we are praying that the lost 10 tribes return, but most likely, according to Rabbi Akiva, they already returned thousands of years ago. That's one idea, and I can express that again. I have discussed it in the past. So the Gemara says like this, according to Rabbi Eliezer, that the prophecy holds true, that they will return. Rabbi Akiva says, no, they won't. Everyone jumps on Rabbi Akiva. How can you say they're not going to return? The prophecy says they're going to return. He says because the prophecy was fulfilled, they already returned. Whoever was supposed to return has already returned. And whoever hasn't, they have to convert if they want to come back and join the Jewish people. Rabbi Yossi, if I'm not mistaken, he's the one who says, like a third opinion, but I think it's like a way to bring them both together. He says only if they do tshuva, then they can return. To me, I understand that to mean a full conversion, unless you have proof, which I don't think any one of these people that I run into who claim they're from the other lost 10 tribes has. Over 2,500 years, 2,700 years, I doubt it. We have a hard enough time with the Bnei Nusim, the Jews from Spain who were forced to convert. Many of them by now have intermarried. Okay, so it's very hard to come up with a proper lineage and have practice, we'll call Israelite Judaism, whatever you want to call it, practicing the Torah for 2,700 years without a community, just handed down from family to family. It's so unlikely, but anything's possible. We believe in miracles, and we're praying every day for the return of the lost Jews, the lost Israelites. And what's the difference between a Jew and an Israelite? Nothing, absolutely nothing. And the reason why I say this is because according to, as I mentioned, Rabbi Eliezer, they came back. Rabbi Akiva, they already returned. Whoever returned. It already was fulfilled. How is that possible? According to Rabbi Akiva, because already during the siege in the north, when Sennacherib was coming, so many Israelites Nebuchadnezzar, had already jumped ship. And first of all, even before they came to attack the northern Israel, the house of Israel in the north, you already had intermarriage. You already had Jews who married, Israelites between tribes. So you had a good 10-15% of the other tribes already living in the area of Yehuda. And then when the siege came and the war began, you had refugees, which was another maybe 10-15%. And then Jeremiah brought back another 10%. So you're talking about almost 40, maybe even 50% of the north had already integrated into Yehuda. And guess what? 50% of the 10 tribes is the majority. Maybe the largest tribe is Yehuda, there's no question about it. Anyway, so according to Rabbi Eliezer, he says, you know why we know it didn't happen yet? Wait till you hear this. He says, when all nations return to their original borders, then we'll know the Jews have returned to their border. So that hasn't happened yet. We do hold by Rabbi Akiva, but Elu ve'elu, divrei elu kim chaim. These and these are the words of the living God. We have to see all the sides. And I think Rabbi Yossi puts it quite succinctly that when they do tshuva and they return, it means they return with their full heart. Not just physically, but they get rid of their idols. Okay? So this is what fascinates me about what the church makes this claim, that they're the Israel. Well, as far as I know, they were exiled, right, because of the three big sins, but mainly idol worship. They stopped coming to Yerushalayim, they built their own temples, they had their idols, and until they do tshuva and get rid of their idols, there's nothing even to talk about. So we're praying that our lost, whoever they are, whether they're lost from 500 years ago, or 50 years ago, or 2,700 years ago, we're praying not just 3 times a day, but they're always in our hearts. And that's one of the reasons we have Home to Torah. We welcome you, and we're willing to teach you, and we're willing to be brothers with you. But you have to come, you have to make the first step. Okay, so our arms are open. So what is it about Yehuda? First of all, let me tell you the date. He was born on the 15th of Sivan in the year 2196. Yehuda. So what was it about Yehuda? When Leah had Yehuda, she had Ruach HaKodesh, she had the Holy Spirit, she had a sense of prophecy, and she knew, she wasn't the only one that knew, there were only 12 tribes, and there were 4 mothers. She made a little bit of a mistake, but it's not so bad because it was a positive mistake. She understood, that there was going to be 12 tribes, so being fair, she assumed, mistakenly, that each one of the 4 mothers were going to have 3 children. And when she gave birth to the 4th child, she realized, if I got 4, that means I received more than my lot, more than I deserve. And I'm going to tell you, she named him Yehuda as gratitude. This time I will praise Hashem. She praises Hashem, therefore she calls his name Yehuda. The root of Yehuda is Yehuda. Exactly. Yada.
Did she know that there would be 4 mothers? Because the Bilhah and Zilpah were not officially part of the family yet.
What do you mean?
Bilhah and Zilpah.
They had not taken them yet? So this is through Ruach HaKodesh. That's the only way.
They were.
When you have Ruach HaKodesh, it's beyond time, right?
They were shvachot, help assisting Leah and Rachel.
So I want you to know, even in the Torah itself, it goes back and forth and calls them sometimes shvachot and sometimes wives.
Yeah, so later on, Yaakov.
When we talk about Ruach HaKodesh, it's beyond time. Prophecy is not limited when it comes to time. Okay, so that's the first thing. Now, Yehuda, the name itself means thanks. It means thanks. So the nature of the Jew, the name is the essence of the Jew, is all about gratitude. So you see Jews walking down the street, maybe they have a kippah, maybe the women have hair coverings, you spot them, right, 1,000,000 miles away, right? These are those grateful ones. Just like you have all the names of the other religions, the name of the religion describes their faith. So our faith is based on gratitude, an attitude of gratitude. Okay, that's like the first thing. Think about the name Yehuda. Yehuda is Yud and a Hey and a Vav and a Dalet and then a Hey. But it's got God's name. The name of Yehuda, the name of the Jew, is the name of God with a Dalet in it. What's the Dalet represent? It always represents this world. So we're God's emissaries. We are the ambassadors of God. So not only is Yehuda just one of the 12 tribes, but he is the leader. He has the kingship, right? King David, the Messiah, has to come through Yehuda. Okay? So as we know, King David, or Yehuda, he's the forebearer of all future kings. So what does the Dalet represent? Dal. Dal means poor, like poor in spirit, like meek, right? You heard the idea, the meek shall inherit the earth. Well, that's from us, the Proverbs, okay? So Mashiach is from David, is from Yehuda, which is God's name with a Dalet. And the Dalet represents poverty, but it's not talking about material necessarily. King David was poor, and so too Yehuda. They all saw themselves as a very poor person. No matter how great their position is, there's such humility and anguish even. Basically, whatever they got, they really feel they were undeserving of that. And that's why Mashiach has to be extremely, exceedingly humble, who will come riding on a donkey. If that's not a humble position, why a donkey is opposed to a horse, right? You would see Trump today, he would be on a white horse. He wouldn't be on a donkey, right? God forbid, right? No. But our Mashiach is going to come riding on a donkey. What is that? Symbolic of the humility, right? And we're going to talk about Esav. Okay, why? And we're going to talk about it tonight, hopefully. So the idea that Yaakov, Yisrael, is Akev, is the foot, is the heel, is the lowest part of the body, right? On Esav, on the other hand, it means a soy, like he came out fully hairy. He's like the opposite, right? We have these two extremes. And we're going to talk about tonight how when Esav is up, Yisrael's down. And when Yisrael elevates himself, there's only one other way for Esav to be. So the idea of Zechariah 9:9, that is the prophecy about Mashiach coming riding on a donkey. Just a few other ideas of giving thanks. If you want to write it down, maybe we'll look it up. Psalms 107 verse 1. I'm going to look it up. There's no source sheets tonight for this. This I just put together at the last minute between baking the... it's not on the source sheet. It's not on the source sheet.
Usual conversation I see.
No, you asked me that earlier today. I told you no. Okay, 107 verse 1. Give thanks to Hashem. Hodu Hashem ki tov. Ki le'olam chasdo. Think about it. What does a Jew do? Before we even open our eyes, we're just opening our eyes. Our hands aren't even washed yet. We may not even be dressed. We're still lying in bed. And what do we say? Modeh ani. What's the root of modeh? The same word. And we're saying, I am grateful. Meaning, I'm a Yehudi. Can you imagine the very first words? I'm a Jew. Modeh ani. I am a grateful person. I'm so grateful that you've returned my soul to me. Now I have an opportunity to serve you. And that's how we begin our day. And then we get to shul. And what do we say right after Baruch Shemar? It depends if you're Sephardi or Ashkenaz. But the first thing you're going to say no matter what is Hodu. Hodu Lashem. It's amazing. And what about Daniel 2:23? Let's see. Daniel 2:23. What does he say? To you, O God of my forefathers, I give thanks and praise, for you've given me wisdom and might. And now you have made known to me what we requested of you. You have made known to us the matter of the king. And what about Isaiah 12:1? Goes like this. You will say on that day, I thank you, Hashem. Let's look in the Hebrew. V'amarta biyomahu odecha Hashem. I am grateful to you. This is the life mission of a Jew, to be forever grateful. King David, right? We talk about rabbinic Judaism. People think, oh, the rabbis, they made these things up. The whole religion is a man-made doctrine. You believe in King David, the Messiah, right? He's the one who established 100 blessings a day. There was a plague, and he says, oh, I wonder what's going on. What are we not doing right? And you know what? According to many opinions, it wasn't that he established it. It was that he reestablished it. That it was a custom, an old custom, based on a verse. The verse says, B'meh, in what does God require of you? That's what the verse says. And he says, don't read it as B'meh, read it as B'meah. God requires of you 100 blessings a day. And what I thought of doing today, but you can find it, and maybe if someone asks me, I'll send it to you by email. There's a record, if you go to synagogue 3 times a day, and you pray with the congregation, and you go to the bathroom a few times, and you eat a few times, by the end of the day, you calculate 100 blessings a day. Just a Jew alone, every single day, will end up making 100 blessings a day. Exactly what King David has reestablished or established, either way you look at it. Now, what does all this have to do with Thanksgiving? As I mentioned, it must be that every single day is Thanksgiving. So why can't we celebrate it today? I celebrated it yesterday. I plan to celebrate it tomorrow, right? So even though it's forbidden to accept and invent new religion, and so this is universal man. Every non-Jew out there wants to attach themselves to the Jewish people, to the God of Israel. Why not accept what the Torah requires of you as well? To be in a constant state of gratitude. Now, amazingly enough, Columbus in 1492, right? What did he do? He set sail. Unfortunately, there was a horrible Inquisition going on, meaning that the Christian church, the church was very upset about infidels, especially the Jews that converted wrongly. Right? They bent over and said, yeah, we'll be Christians, but they were hiding the fact they were really Jews. Okay, so these were the conversot. They have a word called moranos, maybe you know that word, but that's not a very flattering word. So we say converso. They were forced to convert, and yet they hid their Jewishness, and this really irked the church to no end. So anyway, at some point they told all the Jews to leave, and Columbus, we know for a fact that somebody on his boat, whether it was his navigator, whether it was many of the Jews, maybe it was himself as a Jew, but there were Jews on that boat, and they left the day after Tisha B'Av in 1492. This was when the decree came, and they left the following day. Where did they go? Where were they intending to go? They wanted to go and find a shortcut to where? India. That's why those islands that they first landed in are called the Indies. Okay, and even the natives they called Indians. In Hebrew, and not just modern Hebrew, ancient Hebrew in the Bible, what is India called? Hodu. So that was their shortcut, right? Or seeming shortcut, and they ended up in the Americas. And they called it, well, the Indians. India is Hodu. Hodu is Yehudah. Thankful, grateful. Okay, now there were many discoveries in the New World, such as peanuts, tomatoes, potatoes, corn. But what's the most famous discovery of all? Turkey. What is turkey in Hebrew? Hodu. Whoa! It's like getting goosebumps, man. I can see it, Felicia, from here. Goosebumps. You asked me on the way over here, what is turkey in Hebrew? I said, I'll tell you during this year. It's Hodu. And supposedly, I don't know how this whole, this whole holiday is somehow fabricated with the Indians eating turkey with the pilgrims who are looking for religious freedom, and they celebrate it. But you know what? There's too much of a coincidence, right? We don't believe in coincidence, but we use the word lightly, right? Too much of a coincidence that this whole, and what do they call the holiday? Oh, that's like, I forgot. What do they call the holiday? They call Thanksgiving. Come on, man. If you hadn't gotten goosebumps by then, you got to have it by now. Right? Okay, so now we'll start the Parsha. And we're in Parshat Toldos. You can find that in Genesis 27, verse 22. So Yaakov drew near to Isaac, his father, and he felt him. So what did Yitzhak felt Yaakov? And he said, the voice is the voice of Yaakov, but the hands are the hands of Esav. Hakol kol Yaakov, v'hayedayim yedei Esav. What are we talking about? What is the voice? Did they have the exact same voice? Remember, they were twins. There's a good possibility. But Rashi tells us they spoke differently, meaning one spoke with kindness and used the name Hashem and said, Baruch Hashem, thank the Lord, praise the Lord, hallelujah. And the other one either left it out or was even worse, perhaps even spoke gruffly, right? Is that a word, gruffly? Any other better word? Okay. So that's the first thing, that's the verse we're going to deal with. So the Kliyakar, who we're using, if you haven't noticed by now, as the outline for our discussion, he says, Lo yachol lomar hakol shel Yaakov v'hayadayim shel Esav. Yitzhak could not have used these words, which we all would have used. He didn't say, and he wasn't able to say, the voice is the voice of Yaakov, and the hands are the hands of Esav. In fact, it was a question. Is it not? It's just, here, watch. He's making, it's like a rhetorical question, a rhetorical statement. I mean, he's in a bewildered state. Because you can see as it goes on, what's the next, are you sure? Is it really you? Is it really you? He's not making a statement, a definitive statement. This is a fact. That the voice is the voice of Yaakov, and the hands are the hands of Esav. But it's more like in doubt. And why is that? De'im kain, because if it was a statement, hayamash shafat mitzad hakol shezeh vada Yaakov, or mitzad hayedayim shezeh vada Esav. Then it would have been, what's the word? A mutant. You're telling me I got an individual, a human being sitting in front of me, who has the voice of one of my sons and the arms, the body of my other son. What do we call that? A mutant. It's two individuals meshed into one. Like, you know a human being that actually has both attributes? So he says, this is not possible. V'zeh davar nimna. It's so unusual. It's not possible. She'imhu Yaakov eina Esav. Because if he is Yaakov, then he's not Esav. V'imhu Esav eino Yaakov. It's got to be one or the other. Yaakov was a smart dude, right? He was a smart guy. And he's yet saying that this is a mutant. According to the Kliyakar, this is how we understand it. That the kol was dome lekol Yaakov. The voice was similar to the voice of Yaakov. And perhaps whoever is behind the voice, remember he was blind, so he couldn't see. Whoever's behind the voice is imitating Yaakov. Right? He felt maybe it's an imitation. But in truth, he really believes it was Esav. It's Esav's arms, and the person is imitating Yaakov through his voice. Imitating, is that the good word? And he was just disguising himself, speaking in such niceties as Esav knew Yaakov was speaking, so he was disguising himself like that, in a way where he could receive the brachot, the blessings. That's one way to look at it. Oh, hayidayim domim lidei Esav, or maybe it was really Yaakov. But the hands were similar to the hands of Esav. V'zeh Yaakov. U'mitnaker ba'asoto yodav s'irut kedei she'echshov shezeh Esav. Or perhaps, right, it was really Yaakov, the voice of Yaakov, but he only dressed up like Esav. Now that's what it means when it says v'hayadayim. Read the verse again. It says, this is the voice of Jacob, and in English it says, but the hands are the hands of Esav. That's not what it says in the Hebrew. It says, this is the voice of Jacob, and the hands are the hands of Esav. And. So what does it mean, and? Right? You have a vav. No. Vav does not always have to mean and. What else can a vav mean? Or. Correct? So he even brings a proof. If you look in Exodus chapter 21, verse 15, where if someone, God forbid, strikes their mother or their father, there's a death penalty. Do you think that in order to get the death penalty, you have to strike them both simultaneously or the same day or whatever it is, in the same lifetime? No. It's one or the other. So that's, now read that as this is the voice of Jacob, or this is the hands of Esav. I don't know. But then he's going to give a third possibility. What did we say so far? It could have been really Esav putting on a show with the voice of Yaakov. It could have been Yaakov putting on clothing or something on his arms to make him disguised as Esav. What's the third possibility? Come on, guys.
Somebody pretending to be.
Exactly. Someone pretending to be both. Meaning he's neither one, neither Esav nor Yaakov, yet he puts on a voice like Yaakov and he puts on a hairy mantle like Esav. Just to finish the point, he says, Shapir's O Imo, back to the verse in Exodus chapter 21, verse 15. The explanation is whether it's your father or your mother. So that's what the word O means. The vav is, it's or the hands that are similar to the hands of Esav. Now if you want to say that the vav of v'hayadayim is actually the word and, which it could be, nochalamar shechashav yitzach, so we're able to say, what did Yaakov think actually? Ulai ez ish nachri mitnaker bishneim. Perhaps it was the third choice. It was a stranger, a complete stranger, who put on a disguised voice like Yaakov and a costume like Esav. So the Kli Yakar continues and he says, in the end, Yitzhak made a judgment, an intellectual. Remember, the word sichlo is spiritual intellect. So he used this highest sense of intellect, which is spiritually based, to decide that the yadayim machriim yoter min hakol. That when you have evidence in front of you, what is more likely? The voice, can someone imitate a voice? Easier. First of all, they were twins, so they could have very well had the same voice. But for sure, one was fair-skinned, let's say, smooth-skinned, and the other one had a lot of hair. So if you have evidence in front of you, most likely it was Esav, because the hairy arm would be harder to imitate than the voice. This is the way the Kli Yakar is going. You may disagree. Today they have functions like apps that you could, I'm sure the police use, right, for voice identification, that you can get it down to like, was it really that person, right? There's forensics with voices. Perhaps today you couldn't get away with it, but twins could. Kima she'esav mitnaker ledaber b'lashon tachanunim hu yoter karov l'shmo mima she'nomar she'Yaakov oso es yodav she'iros o ish nachri also came. So here's what he says. From the fact that Esav imitates the language, remember we said it wasn't just the voice recognition, but it was the usage of the voice, speaking about praising Hashem or thanking Hashem like the Jews do, like Yaakov did. So that would have been easier. Yoter karov lishma, much easier to hear this idea, meaning it's easier to imitate. Mimash nemar sheYaakov also shidav. It's certainly easier than thinking that Yaakov could grow hair instantly out of his arms. I mean, there are also mutants that do that, right? So I hear. Or even a third party, right? We talked about this. Perhaps it's a total stranger who went ahead. How's he going to grow the hair and take over the voice? That's so far out. and Yaakov also having just coming in with hair so far out. What was the easiest thing for Yitzhak to believe? That it was Esav who was just talking a little nicer. Ki ech yochol l'sha'er Yaakov. How is Yaakov able to grow hair like that? How much more so by a third party? Lasos yadav shiros al zeh hashiur. It's just crazy to think that hair would grow like that. Until he really came to believe that this most likely must have been actually Esav. So that really, when he thinks it's Esav, could it be Esav in every aspect? There's a verse, Lo hikiru kayu yadav kide Esav echiv seirot. So on the source sheet, this is in Genesis 27, verse 23. It's just the next words. He didn't recognize him because his hands were hairy like the hands of his brother Esav. So he was convinced that it must have been Esav, and he blessed him. So based on what we just said, it was for sure the hair that gave away, or gave the hint, or told the story that it was really Esav. Of course it wasn't. But that was the strong evidence, and that's why he went with it. He went with what we call the deception. As we started this paragraph by saying, that's the weightier evidence, and that's the proof that the evidence held more weight. So let's sum this up. Basically, this is why it says that Yitzhak didn't recognize him, for his hands were hairy like the hands of his brother Esav. Meaning he was similar to Esav in every way. Who would imagine such a thing and not err in imagining it? Because Esav's hands were in his own hands. As we spoke about, that this is like a very a blind person raises his senses, but the sense of touch is extremely strong, and it's more believable, right? Because we already spoke about the idea that anybody could just say a few words, so that could be easily disguised. But how can someone disguise by getting a hold, even if it was in his own hairy hands, this garment that can imagine Esav, as the tradition is, took the garments that originally belonged to Adam Harishon in the Garden of Eden, and it was ended up by Nimrod, and Esav himself, the murderous Esav, killed Nimrod just for these garments. So imagine how's Yaakov able to hold onto these garments? So it must be Esav. Okay, so that's that paragraph, and then we'll go on. Okay, so what we're about to discuss is going to be life-changing, okay? For anybody who's never heard these ideas before, you're in for a big one. Chazal say in Bereshit Rabbah, in the Medrash, that they expound this verse, Shekol Zman, that the whole time that Yaakov is mitzaf seif bekolo, that any time that Yaakov is chirping away, bekolo, with his voice, Ein yedei Esav sholetus bo. Esav, our enemy, has no ability to have any control over us. What do you think this chirping, this mitzaftzef is? This kol shel Yaakov, this voice of Yaakov that's moving his lips, that's some sound is emanating from Yaakov. What is this sound? The sound you're hearing right now. The sound you're hearing right now, Torah, is going to save us from our enemies. Afapi, shipshuto, even though the simple explanation, the verse sounds mashma, she Yitzhak amar kain, that Yitzhak is saying such a thing, Savor shezeh Esav, right? That he's saying, I thought this was Esav. Furthermore, ma inyan zeh lebracha zu. What exactly is the concept by this special blessing? Mekom makom kach perusha. Nevertheless, this is how it's going to be explained. Kidas Yitzchak haya levarech es Esav bebirchat. That, you know what? The intent of Yitzchak was actually to give the blessing to Esav. That what? That you should be stronger than your brother. Havei gvir la'achicha. You should be stronger than your brother Yaakov. Shu Yedei Esav Sholetus Bo. The bracha to Esav would be that you will have control over Yaakov. That you will be stronger. V'hitul Tanai B'davar. However, there's a great condition to this blessing. And the condition goes like this. It's Dafka im Yaakov lo yitzavtze b'kolo. It's this blessing that Esav, you'll have control. That's only if your brother's voice is not raised. If you're not raising your voice, babate kenesiot umidrashos. If you're not going to shul and you're not going to the study halls, then Esav will have control over you. But not at the time that he is chirping away with his voice. Ki hakol docha hayadayim, because the voice is going to push off the hands. Remember, his hands were in his hands. We already said that's the strongest sense. And yet, what's the first thing he says? It's the voice of Yaakov and the hands of Esav, or the hands of Esav. First thing he hears, the biggest impression was the voice. And as long as the voice is there, the hands are pushed off. Where did we ever hear such a thing, that whatever is mentioned first pushes off whatever is mentioned second? By Shabbos. How do we know what you can and cannot do on Shabbos? Look at number 4 on the source sheet, Leviticus 35:2. It tells you 6 days work may be done, but on the 7th day you're supposed to have a sanctity, a day of complete rest to the Lord. Whoever performs work thereon in this day shall be put to death. You're talking about a death penalty for not keeping Shabbos. I want to tell you, who you think you're keeping Shabbos because you invented what you think is a rest day, how can it be? We're talking about if you violate Shabbos objectively with witnesses, you're put to death. So there must be objective criteria what is considered, and I'm not going to use the word work, milacha. The Hebrew word is milacha. Okay? So, what are we saying? If you keep reading in chapter 35, you will come across verses that will tell you now it's time to collect money, right? V'yakel, collect money, collect the materials for the building and construction of the temple. So since Shabbos is mentioned first, and then you have the Melachas HaMishkan, that's what it's called, Melechet HaMishkan, the work towards the Mishkan. The same Melacha that you're supposed to refrain from on Shabbos is, how do you know what it is? It's the 39 creative acts that are used to build or construct or maintain the Mishkan, the tabernacle. Okay, so what do we see? This is the principle. Whatever is mentioned first is more important and pushes off the second. It's the kol Yaakov, it's the voice of Yaakov, it's the sound of Torah that we will never, that Yaakov made, that Yitzhak gave this blessing. Your enemies will control you if that voice stops, but as long as that voice is going strong, they have no power over you. Okay, thank you, Malka. So, and when I mentioned the quote is chapter 35, verse 2 in Leviticus, it's actually Exodus chapter 35. As I did mention, it's Parshat V'yakel, which is not Leviticus, but is found in Shmos, in Exodus. Thank you very much. Okay, and you can see from the Rashi, Moses prefaced, meaning put first the discussion before the work of the Mishkan with the warning to keep the Shabbat, denoting that it's the work of the Mishkan does not override the Sabbath, but the Sabbath pushes off the work. Okay? So now knowing that, and we comparing that to the voice over the hands of Yaakov, Ki hakol doche yadayim. It's the voice of Torah of Yaakov that's going to push off and hold back and be a guard against the yadayim, the hands of Esav. And he says this is very much hinted at in the verse by putting first the voice before the hands. However, let's now have a question. What's bothering you? Didn't we originally say that the weightier evidence, the proofs all went after the Yadayim, as if the kol was insignificant? Shidbervas Hashem Lakam B'Parshas V'Yakel. So the Kliyakar is going to explain that in depth further in Parshas V'Yakel. But if you look, according to what Rashi said, and we just read that Rashi, Hiktim Shabbos LaMishkan, that Shabbos, the laws of keeping Shabbos, come before the building of the Mishkan, to tell you She'ein Melechas HaMishkan Doiches HaShabbos, that you cannot do the work for the Mishkan. Shabbos takes precedence. See over there, he says. But nevertheless, Yitzhak actually says it. He uses the word, the Kol Shel Yaakov, before he mentions the Yadayim Shel Esav. He still mentions it. Even though we say it's a weightier evidence, nevertheless, it's significant. Lomer Lecha, to teach you what? Shekol Doiche Ese Yadayim. That the voice of Torah emanating from the Jewish people is going to push off the hands of Esav. Ve'ezahu, what are we speaking about? Haviomer ze kol shel Yaakov babate midrajos. What kind of kol are we talking about? The sound of Torah of the Jewish people in the Beit Midrash. I'm going to tell you now, if you're watching this video and you want to bring world peace, my suggestion, donate to yeshivas, donate to Yiboneh, donate to people who are learning Torah. This is going to bring salvation. This is going to bring redemption. This is going to bring true peace to the world. And you can find in a link, by the way, well, we might as well tell you where it is. In the description box below on this YouTube video, you can find the link to make a donation. And you can also learn Torah. That's more important than any donation you can ever give. But if you don't have time and you want to join in, be a partner. This answers the question that most of the world asks about the midrashic allegory, that the voice represents what? What does the voice represent? Spiritual pursuits, whereas the hands represent physical pursuits. And the verse seems to imply that both rule as one. Why can't you do both? We were speaking about this earlier also, about work. And this would seem the opposite of what the Medrash says, that as long as the voice of Yaakov is continuously chirping, then the hands of Esav hold no sway. So many tenuous approaches were advanced to resolve the question, but the Kliyakar says what I have said is the most appropriate and correct answer. That through learning Torah by the voice, the Kol Yaakov, learning Torah in the Beit Midrashot, public teachings, is going to bring about the downfall of the enemy and protect the Jewish people. And so we finish off the last paragraph, the Al Tzad HaRemez. Now we're going deeper into the Pardes, into the orchard, that it says Ha-Kol. Ha-Kol. What do you need the hey? The voice. There's a hey. It's Remez Lekolo Babate Midrashos. I've been telling you all along, it's the voice of Torah. How do you know it's the voice of Torah? Because you believe me, you believe him? What's the letter hey have to do with Torah? So there's a Gemara in Brachos, page 6b, that talks about at the time of Sinai, at the revelation, there were 5 kolos, there were 5 voices. Shalom dim haTorah shenitna b'chamisha kolos, that the Torah was given with 5 voices. In the source sheet I have here, in number 5. So the verse is in Exodus 19, verse 16. It came to pass on the 3rd day when it was morning. Actually, we're going to read 16 and 19. It says there were thunderclaps. Now in Hebrew it says vihi kolos. Kolos is plural. That's 2 right there. And lightning flashes. And a thick cloud was upon the mountains, a very powerful blast of the shofar, kol shofar. So in that verse you have 3 times kol, meaning kolos once, which is plural. That's 2, plus the second time it's mentioned is the 3rd time you count in the count. And then in Exodus 19:19. In the Hebrew, Kol HaShofar is mentioned again. That's another one. And the word at the last word, Bikol. And the sound of the shofar grew increasingly stronger. Moses would speak, and God would answer him with a voice. It's all about the Kol. 5 Kols are mentioned. Now, if we're going to now take the word Esav and times it, the word Yadayim. We're talking about Yadayim, the hands of Esav. Yadayim is Yad. Yad is 14. times 14 times 5, you get the number 70. Why is 70 so significant? What is the significance of number 70? Aside from the 70 souls that went down to Egypt, that actually represents the 70 nations. That's how the Jewish people are the center of the world. But the 70 nations themselves. So now take the name Esav. Okay, let's keep to the text. And he says like this, the word Yadayim, meaning hey Yadayim, if you take Yad, which is 14 times 5, so that means, right, of the Yadei Esav, the hands of Esav, Ki chamesh pa'amim Yad oil shivim. When you times 5 times the word Yad, you get 70. This is a remez, Lidei kol shivim umos hasholetus b'Yisrael, kishe'ena mitzavtzafim b'kolam. This is a hint to the 70 nations that control the Jewish people when Yaakov's voice is not being heard in the Beit Midrashot, when Torah is silenced and not being learned. Then they have control over us. Now I thought we said Esav has control over us. Do you know who Esav is? Esav, well, at least the angel of Esav, he is representing all the nations. Kain Amru ben Medrash, Esav is Osios Ayin Shav. What is Ayin Shav? It means the 70. Ayin is the letter Ayin, it means 70, right? It's the Gematria 70. What Shav means? Nothingness. Nothingness. Vanity. Nisht. Ephes. Zero. That's what Esav. L'shav Barati Shivim Umos, that for nothingness I created the 70 nations. This is God speaking. V'chein perish Balatorim. Now if we open up the Balatorim, which is on the very bottom of the sheet here, it's based on a verse in Genesis 25:25. And the first one emerged red. He was completely like a coat of hair, and they named him Esav. The idea that Esav represents completeness, not necessarily in a good way. Imagine being born and you had no room for growth because you are complete. See, we talked about earlier about Yehudi, a sense of poverty, a sense of lowliness, meekness, humility. Here you're talking about, I am born and I don't have any room for growth. Asui, I'm completely made. This was a big problem for Esav, as if you look in the Balatorim, that's the first thing he mentions, as Rashi had also mentioned, Sharei Asui v'nigmar, complete, finished. However, there's another idea. What is the gematria of Esav? 376. It's the same word as Shalom, meaning within the name Esav, the same gematria Shalom. Now, where's the Shalom? Wait till you hear this. If it didn't have the same gematria of Shalom, if it didn't have some aspect of Shalom, he would have been like, I don't know, like the Hulk, right? When there's something that would just burst out and would kill everything in surroundings. God gave him some type of a, I don't know, tranquilizer? Huh? Leverage. Peace, just to bring him down a notch, right? Listen to what he says. Tana Shalom, Nasam B'Shav, with the Shin Vav Ayin. It's the same osios as we already described as nothingness. But one second, we learn Melamed Shekol Haroidev Shalom. Anyone who chases peace, Ein Tefilato Chazeret Rekam. His prayers would never return empty if they have peace. So peace is a very important thing. Ela Me'ata, the very fact that it says Esav, and we already know that it's the same gematria as Shalom. So here we're saying that somehow or another, the fact that it's written Esav, we have to look at the numbers. There's also Shalom involved. So if you look at chapter 27, verse 40, what does it say over there? It says, by your sword you shall live. Can you imagine? This is the way this man lives. But your brother you shall serve. Now what does that mean? In Hebrew, you have to know, Rabbi Chesed brings this idea down a lot. He talks about the tshuva of Esav, and perhaps Trump being the leader of the Christian world, right? The Esav world, the Roman world. And he's probably from Esav, right? Yet it shall be that when you are aggrieved, you may cast off his yoke from upon your neck. So let's see verse 40 in Hebrew. Al chir b'cha tichya, by your sword you're going to live, meaning with violence. Vet achicha ta'avod. Now what does that mean? And your brother you will serve, or your brother you will destroy. It's the same word, just different vowelization. And it's all a matter of whether or not Yaakov is going to speak Torah, live Torah, meditate on the Torah, make Torah his life, oisek b'Torah, make it his business. You understand? That's going to save the world. Like Asher Tarid, and when you are going down or grieved, when you're grieved, what does that mean? So when Yaakov, the Jews, stop learning Torah, you can take that yoke off and you're free to do whatever you want with them. But when they are keeping the Torah, they're keeping Torah mitzvahs, so then you have no shlita. You have no control or mastery over them. That's what the verse means. And he goes on, and he said pretty much what I said already. That the fact that his name is Shalom, meaning Shalom is added, the name implies there's some kind of Shalom, that if it was not for Shalom, there would have been horrible, horrible disasters, because this nation, Esav, what it represents, is just one big disaster for the world. Okay, and with that, so what I'd like to do is just end with a blessing that I welcome you home to Torah, and this is what it's all about. We're about saving the world. Right? The Jewish people are the suffering servant in Isaiah 53. If you don't believe me, read the Hebrew. Okay? You read throughout Isaiah, all through the 40s, all through chapter 40s and 50s. You'll see Yaakov, Yisrael, is the servant. And we don't have to suffer anymore. You can actually come to our aid and our assistance and ask for forgiveness from Hashem. And so for those Jews out there, get on the program, get on the bandwagon, learn as much as you can, be involved. If you have to work 8 hours a day, put aside an hour. If you can't, put aside 15 minutes. Whatever you possibly can. Teach your children, talk it over with your wife. Just support Torah and be involved. And I wish you all a Chodesh Tov and a Shabbat Shalom and a great life.
Shama shir shir